Hi everybody, my name's Sabrina and I did my research on Apex Park in Golden, Colorado. This is the title slide of my PowerPoint. I named it Community Ecology at Apex Park, and I put the purpose of this research is to study the effects of urbanization on wildlife, specifically at Apex Park in Golden, Colorado. This slide includes a little background about the location of my park and gives us an idea of the type of landscape the species we observed live in. The center photo here is an outline of the perimeter of Apex Park. The orange pinpoint on the right side marks the exact location of the UWIN camera. The surrounding pictures are of different areas in the park and the park entrance sign. These photos do a good job of showing the hilly landscape of the park and remind us that the camera is located at the base of the foothills. The data that the camera collected at my UWIN location is fairly reliable because I only had a couple incidences of change in field of view. The camera was placed in a more secluded area of the park with less foot traffic, so there was less of a chance of the camera being moved or tampered with. The environment and weather also had very little effect on the field of view. I will point out, however, that I did observe slight changes in the field of view during the October 2018 and the January 2019 seasons. So these pictures here show the changes in field of view a little bit closer. The column all the way on the left compares a photo taken at the beginning of the January 2018 season to a photo taken at the end of the season. Both of these photos are showing the exact same field of view, and it's easy to tell the camera position wasn't changed or tampered with throughout this particular season. The column in the middle shows a moderate change in field of view that took place during October 2018 season. If you look at the tree branch that cuts across the top left corner of the photo, you can tell that the camera was tilted slightly to the left at some point during the season. And then the final column, all the way on the right here, shows a drastic change in the field of view that took place in between the January 2019 season and the April 2019 season. And here are a few pictures of different species that were captured on the camera at my UWIN site, as well as the corresponding graphs showing the frequency of each species at different times of day. The fox squirrel was observed most frequently during the hours of daylight, as well as red foxes. Striped skunks were only really observed during early morning and late evening. Mule deer were captured all throughout the day, with the highest frequency being around mid-morning to afternoon. This next slide here shows the timing of coyote observations. The next couple of slides are going to be kind of the timing and the percent daily use of all the different species that we observed on the Apex Park camera. As you can tell by the lack of figures on this slide, coyotes were not observed very frequently at this UWIN location. This makes me slightly question the 3 times that they were observed, just thinking maybe it was an error or they were mislabeled since it was only 3 times during the This is a box plot of the percent daily use for coyotes across all 40 UWIN locations. My location, Apex Park, is the second one in from the far left. And here is the timing for the eastern cottontail rabbit. It also wasn't observed during most seasons, although it was captured fairly frequently during the April 2018 season. And then as you can see in this box plot, the number of observations for this rabbit was on the lower end for my park when compared to all the other locations. The eastern cottontail rabbit was observed more frequently in other locations. This one here is the timing of elk observations. So elk were observed almost every season except for January 2018. And then here is the box plot for elk percent daily use. I think this one's really interesting because it shows that my location, Apex Park, was one of only 2 locations that captured. This here is for fox squirrel observations. Fox squirrels were only observed or I'm sorry, they were observed very frequently during exactly half of the season, so during 4 seasons. When we compared all of the parks, fox squirrels were observed much more frequently in other locations. Mule deer were captured in almost every season, but they were captured most frequently during the seasons of April, June, and October 2019. And then, similarly to elk, my location was one of the only ones in the project that captured mule deer. I think that's pretty exciting. Raccoons were observed very infrequently during only 2 seasons. Similar to a species I talked about before, I think maybe we might question the validity of this a little bit just because they only were spotted 3 times. It could be that maybe the photos were mislabeled. And raccoons were observed very little in more than half of the parks, including Apex Park. Red foxes were only observed during the spring-summer months, so that was April 2019 and June 2019 that they were observed. Red foxes used few parks frequently, particularly Gates Crescent and Delmar parks. You can see they only used a couple. And here's the timing for striped skunk observations. Since striped skunks were only observed 1 time in 3 different seasons, this also makes me wonder if the photos were tagged correctly. And here is the percent daily use. They were rarely observed at any parks in the UWIN project. And then here is the timing of humans and domestic animal observations. I find it really interesting that humans and domestic animals were the only species spotted during every single season. And then unfortunately there was not a box plot for the percent use of humans and domestic animals. All right, and this slide here has 2 different figures for community ecology at Apex Park. These 2 box plots show the species richness and Shannon diversity index for all 40 UWIN locations. The plots for my location, Apex Park, can be found almost all the way on the left next to Windy Saddle Park. Apex Park has a fairly high measure of species richness compared to most parks, as well as a high Shannon diversity index. This means that there was a wide variety of different species that inhabit Apex Park, and the Shannon Diversity Index shows that there is a relative evenness to the number of individuals from each species. Let's see. This box plot here shows the Simpson Diversity Indexes for all 40 UWIN parks. The Simpson Diversity Index is another way that we can measure the diversity of species at a certain location. Similar to the Shannon Diversity Index, Simpson Diversity also takes into account the number of species present as well as the abundance of each species. The median for Apex Park is also relatively high compared to other parks when looking at the Shannon or the Okay, here's my conclusion slide. I put a little picture of a deer there that was from my location. Overall, I think that Apex Park has a really high diversity of species, and it's a great habitat for many different mammals. I think that the location of the camera was great. It really allowed us to observe a wide range of species. The positioning of the camera also seemed to be perfect for capturing most animals. Although the UWIN cameras allowed us to do a lot of really great research, we also have to acknowledge some of the shortcomings of the design. We have to recognize that although the camera captured lots of different species, that doesn't mean that we observed every single species within the park. There could be many other animals, especially small ones, that were never observed during the experiment. In the future, I think that we could do better by using a video camera to record a continuous video of all of the activity that happens at the UWIN locations. So not only would this give us much more data, but it would also help us get closer to seeing every species present in the park. Overall, this was a very well-designed experiment, and we were able to obtain a lot of useful data from every camera in the UWIN parks. And that's the end.